So Jacob leaves home. He goes and he finds himself in his grandparents' family, and his mother's parents' part of the country, and he moves in with Uncle Laban. Now, as weird as this might seem to us today, it was customary for them to marry within their own family. And so as he moves in with Uncle Laban, what he finds is Uncle Laban has a daughter. He actually has two. His first daughter's name was Leah. Now, I'm not going to be mean about this, but the Bible says Leah was cross-eyed and ugly. And get mad at me, that's what the Bible said. But it says that Rachel was beautiful in form. And so Jacob, having laid eyes on Rachel, I want her. So after being there for some time and having enough time to not only fall in love with her looks, but to fall in love with Rachel, Laban comes to him and says, listen, it's not right for you, just to be here and to not have a paying job. He said, I want you to work for me. I want you to work for me. You set your price. Now, if you understand, and if you remember, a few weeks ago I talked about the betrothal process. In the betrothal process, you had to have a bride price. The very beginning of the process, the potential son-in-law would come to the father-in-law, and he would negotiate a price that was paid to the father-in-law to gain his right to betroth himself to that guy's daughter. Jacob sees his opportunity. You name your price, Jacob. Let me work for you for a specific amount of time, and my price for that time of work will be the bride price so that I can marry Rachel. Dad says, okay. So he begins working. At the end of that period, somehow, I don't know how he does it, the whole thing seems kind of shady and weird to me, but somehow Dad tricks Jacob into marrying Leah. Now, let's just be honest. He knew Leah wasn't getting married because there wasn't nobody coming over to hitch themselves to her. She was just plain ugly. So he said, I ain't got but one way to get this chick out of my house. And I'm tired of buying her food. I'm tired of paying for her clothes. I'm tired of sending her out on the weekends trying to get her a date, and she'd come back to watch the movie all by herself. I need to get her hitched to somebody up in here. So he tricks Jacob to the point. Jacob consummates the marriage, sends him to a dark room somewhere. He consummates the marriage and never realizes. I don't know how that happens, but it happened. This is Christmassy, ain't it? How about you? Christmas spirit's all up in here right now. And so when he realizes what has happened, he goes back to Laban. And Laban goes, listen, it wouldn't be right for me to marry off my second daughter when my first daughter hadn't been married yet. So I had to marry her off. I'll cut you a deal. You work for me for the set amount of time, and I will go through this process again, and I will give you Rachel. So he marries Leah. Now he works and marries Rachel. Now you can kind of imagine how this story goes. He was ultimately in love with Rachel to begin with, and then he got her ugly sister. And so, all of a sudden in the middle of all of this stuff, he starts playing favorites. Except for the fact that Rachel couldn't have any kids. So the only way that he could preserve his family line was to have children with the apparently very fertile Leah. So Leah begins to have kids for Jacob, trying to win her husband's affection. He is having children with Leah, trying to preserve his family line, all the while really loving Rachel. So they have Jacob and Leah have a firstborn, Reuben. Now wait a minute, because in Matthew, Reuben was not in the story. He has a second-born, Simeon. Except Simeon wasn't in the genealogy. He had a third-born, Levi. Except Levi wasn't in the genealogy. Then he had Judah. Customarily, you would put your firstborn in the, but he's putting the fourthborn. Well, see, you probably don't know a whole lot about Judah other than Judah means praise. And you probably heard that preached a little bit. But other than that, you probably don't know a whole lot about Judah, because of Jacob's children, his most famous was the son that he had with Rachel, whose name was Joseph. And Joseph was a daddy's boy. He was the favored child. In my household, they called it the golden child. Somehow I got dubbed the golden child. But Joseph had favor with his dad. Well, this got under everybody's craw. It really got on everybody's nerves. And so they already had this thing against Joseph, all of the brothers, because, you know, Joseph was the favorite and he is by the other wife. And to only make it worse, Joseph has a dream. And in his dream, everybody bows down and bows down to Joseph. And Joseph, being the golden child, thinks everything he does is right. And everything, you know, he thinks his stuff don't stink. And he goes out and he starts telling everybody, guess what, guys? I had this dream. And in my dream, you all were bowing down to me. Well, come on, I'm sure that went over real well. And so sometime later, all the brothers were going out and they were tending the sheep. They were tending the flocks out on the hillside. When Dad looks at Joseph and says, I need you to go and check on all of your brothers. Joseph said, okay. So he takes off to the hillside to check on his brothers. And as the brothers see him quite a distance off, they go, look, here comes that dreamer. A hatred has begun to grow in them. And they began, the Bible says, they plotted to kill him. Now, that's a family you want to be in right there, son. I mean, sibling rivalry goes to a whole nother level. And so they watch him as he comes up, and they grab him and they throw him in this cistern or this empty well that's there. And the Bible makes a very curious statement. It says, and they sat down to eat their meal. Joseph comes up, they grab him, rip his robe off, and throw him in a cistern before they kill him. And then they take a pause between throwing him in the well and killing him to eat lunch. And as they eat their meal, we see Judah. Because Judah speaks up. Wait a minute, guys. You know what? We're going to break Mom and Dad's heart. I mean, we're killing our brother here. What are we going to get out of this? I mean, really, all we got is a dead brother, right? But look out in the distance, because there's a caravan of traders coming from Gilead. And they're on their way to Egypt, I can see, because they've got all their stuff that they're going down there to trade with. Why don't we sell Joseph and make some money off of this thing? We get rid of our brother. We don't have his blood on our hands. He's out of the picture, and we get to pocket some cash. Traders come by. They sell Joseph off. That's the end of chapter 37 in Genesis.